evaporated.
At that point, I really made up my mind that it wasn't aligned with my values to go, and so I wouldn't be attending.
Her refund requests routinely denied by Ticketmaster and promoter Live Nation, even after opening acts, including the Grammy-winning artist Beck, dropped out of the show.
I kind of feel like they're taking advantage of their fans. Both Arcade Fire and Ticketmaster could have handled the situation a whole lot better.
Many others turning to social media to voice outrage.
To not have done anything over the last, 4 months to address this is lazy and poor business.
Callie Duncan was planning on coming to Vancouver from Kamloops for the show tonight.
I feel like Ticketmaster and the band are hiding behind outdated policies that aren't appropriate for this situation.
Ticketmaster and Live Nation have yet to respond to repeat requests for comment by CBC News. This business ethics expert says the silence speaks volumes.
There are increasing expectations by consumers that they want companies to take action when they really feel their values have been violated.
As of Friday afternoon, entire rows of tickets still up for grabs, many at a discount, meaning little hope for fans trying to resell. Instead, many deciding to let their tickets simply go to waste.
And I'd rather have the Arcade Fire play an empty stadium than go to their show. And
her empty seats, a show of lost support and disappointment. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The BC government is swimming with some unexpected cash. The province is looking at a surplus of $5.7 billion in its budget, despite financial pressures caused by the pandemic. The finance minister says faster than expected economic recovery pushed the operating surplus to $5 billion more than estimated in the last quarter.
These numbers that we're seeing here, this is a shock rebound numbers. And so whether they're going to hold over the long term remains to be seen.
Robinson says much of the added surplus comes from higher personal and corporate income taxes. On Tuesday, BC's Auditor General raised concerns that the province was not following generally accepted standards in some areas of its financial reporting. The Finance Ministry defends its accounting. Well, BC has become the first province in Canada to give Indigenous peoples legal rights over child welfare and family services. The province says changes within current legislation will ensure First Nations peoples can govern and provide services based on their own child and family laws. A new Indigenous director will be named and will provide advice and guidance to the province on how to better support Indigenous children and youth. Last month, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs and the legislation said the legislation could not be passed soon enough. The BC government is reversing a decision it made last year. It will maintain individualized funding for children with autism instead of phasing it out in 2025. Last October, the province announced changes to autism support funding to make it more streamlined. The money would have been replaced by so-called family connection centers or hubs across the province. Parents and disability activists, however, say doing so ignores important nuances in autism care. They say the decision to keep the old system has them feeling optimistic.
Parents want that choice to be able to decide what services their kids should get and what service providers they're working with.
The province has also committed to more collaboration with parents and caregivers, Indigenous communities and practitioners to better understand what the system needs. Vancouver Police is defending the actions of its officers after bystanders in the downtown east side questioned the use of force involving a beanbag gun during an arrest yesterday.
You wanna shoot me? Shoot me.
Yo, what the f***? Yo, what the f***? Oh, he was putting his arms on the car!
That dramatic video shows police surrounding a man who falls to the ground after shots ring out. Moments later, a dog appears to be attacking the man. The witnesses who shared the video say that they believe that police could have done more to de-escalate the situation. Vancouver police claim the man is a high-risk and violent offender involved in the local drug trade and was considered armed and dangerous.
The suspect was extremely non-compliant with our officers. He did not obey the verbal commands that were being given by our officers, specifically to surrender by getting down on the ground.
The Vancouver area network of drug users posted that video online. They allege the man was unarmed and complied with officers before being shot with the beanbag gun.
His hands are up. Clearly, there's no weapons in his hands. He's acquiescing. And yet, as soon as, you hear the first beanbag gun go off, I think everybody there realized, oh, this is actually, I'm witnessing, an unfair use of force.
The suspect was treated for injuries sustained during the incident and now faces multiple charges. A coroner's report has new details on the deaths of 3 teenage hockey players who died in a car crash in Surrey's Fraser Heights last August. It says that the vehicle was traveling at a speed of 187 kilometers per hour, seconds before impact. Also, findings conclude that the driver was intoxicated and that Ronan Sharma, the passenger in the rear seat, was not wearing a seatbelt at the time of the crash. The report classifies Sharma's death as accidental. Some BC entrepreneurs are concerned about Canada's rising tensions with China. They say they are feeling the ripple effect of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's recent clash with China's president at the G20 summit. China is BC's second biggest trading partner. I spoke recently with business owners who fear the frozen diplomatic relations could put a chill on trade.
When China's President Xi Jinping confronted Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the G20 summit,
everything we discussed is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate.
Business owner Chris Pereira felt the tension all the way in Richmond.
Going to cause additional headaches and additional waves in the relationship, and including in the business world.
Pereira helps Canadian brands enter China and vice versa. Lately, he says interest in China is slowing. And even though Chinese companies are still clamoring for Canadian dollars, the reception here can be chilly.
For many companies that have nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with the Chinese government, just having the brand of China placed onto them can have an unfair effect on their operations.
For some BC companies, the politics haven't gotten in the way yet.
We're seeing about double-digit growth this year over last year for Canadian brands that we operate.
But everyone is watching. A recent report from the University of Alberta found a continued decline in Canadian exports to China, a 14% drop from last year over the same period. BC exports more to China than any other province, more than $717 million alone in September.
We cannot really walk away from China. So the government of Canada, despite all the short-term irritations and disagreements, must protect the long-term interests of Canada.
This BC entrepreneur and political watcher says we may not like China's human rights record, but turning away the economic powerhouse could threaten Canada's competitive edge.
We can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can express our difference with China without having to jeopardize our trade with China.
Canada is set to announce its Indo-Pacific strategy in the coming days. Experts say they already have a sense of where Canada places China in terms of priority based on past interactions. Businesses here are watching and hoping they won't be on the losing end of any deals. Lien Yeung, CBC News, Vancouver. Some dedicated shoppers were out looking to score some Black Friday deals earlier today.
It's fine. It's not very busy at all.
Our cameras were at MacArthur Glen Outlet Mall, where shoppers say there weren't very many long lines or waits. Retail experts say the days of early morning door crashers have mostly disappeared. Black Friday sales are starting earlier and earlier. The decrease in pandemic health restrictions had many retailers expecting more traffic, though, with outlets like MacArthur Glen telling CBC they expected more people than last year. Johanna, you love shopping. I do too. Did you score any Black Friday deals?
Yeah. Leanne, if there were any two better people to talk about this,
I don't know. I did not. I kind of did, like, I really got a handle on it this year, so I didn't need to. I'm very proud of myself. How about you?
I just bought some shampoo. It was a great price. There you go.
Well done. Well done. Look at us. Just laying it all out. Yes.
Exactly.
Well, we still have the evening.
That's right. Right into Cyber Monday. All right. How about weather? How's that looking outside?
Yeah, a little more confidence in my control on that one. We managed to see clearing after all of that rain this morning. Let me show you that sharp-looking cold front on the satellite and radar just headed through the Kootenays now. This is where we are still seeing steady snow. But if you looked up sort of around 3-4 p.m., you might have actually seen that distinctive cloud band in the sky as that front came through. Nice to see the sunset and some pink skies out there. So a couple things going on. Tonight we've got the snow for the Kootenays, Highway 3, the yellow for the Coquihalla, Hope to Merritt, that and the Okanagan Connector. That is for the next system, and that one is going to be coming through tomorrow morning for us as rain, Lien. A little bit later on, though, we've got to talk about the snow. It's happening, and I'll tell you what I know.
Oh, my. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Jo.
You're welcome.
With the World Cup underway, British Columbians are finding unique ways to celebrate their favorite soccer teams and players. As Janella Hamilton reports, for some fans, it means carrying on a treasured tradition, hunting for coveted collector stickers, all to complete their 2022 collection.
This is 1987, 1990, and 1991.
Luis Shimonovich has been collecting Panini World Cup stickers since he was a young boy in Brazil.
You buy the album and the stickers, and then all your friends from school on recess, you swap.
There are hundreds of stickers to collect, each one displaying a different player and team. Many collectors trying to complete their album before the World Cup kicks off.
What about this one?
Canada.
Canada.
A hobby passed down from his dad, one he now shares with his kids.
I was 7 when Canada actually made it to the first World Cup, and now he's 7 and Canada is making it again 36 years later. So it's something to keep. It's a souvenir from the past. It's a time capsule.
A chance to learn about different athletes from different countries and connect with soccer fans from around the globe, with an eye to swap stickers and complete their collections.
I put a post on Facebook, is anyone at Metrotown want to swap cards? And in 5 minutes I met, there was 2 guys from Brazil, 1 guy from Israel, 1 guy from India. We sat at the food court and swapped cards.
Using social media to meet other newcomers and neighbors.
Probably met over a dozen people around Vancouver, just meeting people, you know, at gas stations or outside their house, are all brought together with this Panini sticker book. So
Acosta's 11-year-old son Jaden says collecting stickers with his dad has been a special experience and has inspired him to one day make it to the world stage.
I play soccer, so like it's just like in me to like look at players and like look at my idols and like learn from them.
Do you remember when you were playing and we did this?
Lena Villamil has fond memories of trading Panini cards with her friends in Colombia. More recently, she's completed albums for the 2014 and 2018 World Cups with her kids.
There's not like a big Latino community in Vancouver. So when I saw this 4 years ago, that it was like a Panini page, and I said, okay, this is nice.
I think that sports, especially in my family, bring us together. So being able to all commit to this and fill it out together, it's kind of a fun thing to do together.
And while it's too soon to say who will win the 2022 World Cup, these families say no matter the outcome, they plan to pass down this tradition for years to come. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Richmond.
We are taking a closer look at the southeast of our province, not just today, but for years to come. The CBC is returning to the Kootenays in a big way and is proud to be launching a regional bureau. Reporter Corey Bullock will be based in Cranbrook, and here she is to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about the place and people who call it home.
Hi, I'm Corey Bullock, a reporter and video journalist with CBC News. We're now in Cranbrook, dedicated to reporting on the issues shaping people's lives in the East and West Kootenays, and why we call this region home.
My favorite thing about Cranbrook is the wilderness mountain area.
It's like if the word warm was a city. It's a nice place.
And can you describe Cranbrook in 3 words for me?
Friendly, small,
Home.
Here's where we are. Cranbrook is in BC's southeast and is the largest city in the East Kootenay. Kimberley is nearby, Fernie to the east, Nelson, Nakusp, and Golden are further to the west and north. Mayor Wayne Price says that Cranbrook combines small-town charm with the amenities of a big city.
The people. I think the people are special here. Work-life balance is very, very important to them, and I believe it is as well. And Cranbrook offers I think a very realistic work-life balance.
These are the Kootenays, home to unbeatable landscape. That's how I like to describe it, because the Rockies and Purcells are our backyard. Personally, you'll find me fly fishing on the Kootenay River. We live within the ancestral and current home of the Ktunaxa. Their territory spans more than 7 million hectares, crossing provincial and national borders.
We're a strong nation. We are a unique people with a unique language and a wonderful spot on earth that was given to us by the Creator.
The town appeared on maps of Canada around the year 1905 as the Canadian Pacific Railway cut through the Crow's Nest Pass. Workers and families arrived in the Kootenays for jobs in mining and forestry, industries that still help drive the economy today. A lot of people now also work in tourism, service, and healthcare. But, like many places, people are grappling with the rapidly rising cost of living. Like elsewhere, we have a shortage of family doctors.
Today we recognize that we are a service center area, and that goes with hospitality and welcoming people into our community.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. This is my community, and I'm proud to be reporting here on the city, the Kootenays, and the people who call it home. Corey Bullock, CBC News, now in Cranbrook.
Oh, wonderful. Corey, we have you with us now. I want to come to Cranbrook and come fly fishing with you. That looks so cool. Of course, we are taping with you now a little bit just before the show because you have been up since 4:30 a.m., I believe. And there have been live broadcasts morning through night because the Bureau just launched today in Cranbrook. So, Corey, hello, welcome. What's going on behind you?
Hi, thank you so much. Well, I'm here at Hot Shots Cafe in Cranbrook, and we have Sarah Penton behind me, broadcasting live with Radio West.
Oh, very fun. It looks so cozy over there, even though some of that scenery that we saw was pretty frosty. What have people been saying to you about being there and covering the city and the region?
You know what, I think people are really looking forward to having some more coverage in this side of the province, and people have been really, really welcoming and receptive so far.
Excellent. So as we saw in your piece just there, Cranbrook is within the territory of the Ktunaxa. You met with an influential leader of theirs, so tell me a little bit more about that. How did that go?
Yeah, so I met with Sophie Pierre. She's one of the most accomplished Indigenous leaders in Canada, a former chief and an elder with the Ktunaxa. A lot has changed for the better since she was a child, but some things haven't.
Within the whole of Amakis Ktunaxa, which is all of our traditional territory, includes the East and West Kootenay, the relationship has been built. We spent a lot of time and effort, we being the nation, we spent an incredible amount of time and effort in building a good, solid relationship with our neighbors, and really in reestablishing our presence here in our own homelands. When I started, like back in the 70s, it was not a good relationship. In fact, the majority of the thought was that we were kind of something that was no longer. I mean, the Indigenous people were talked about in the past sense. Oh, they used to live here. They used to hunt here. They used to do that. This and that. Well, nowadays it's people acknowledge this is Amakis Ktunaxa. All of it is Amakis Ktunaxa, and all of our communities have good working relationships with the local municipalities that they're next to. Here at Aqam, there's a very good working relationship between City Council and our council, and we fly the nation flag in Cranbrook. Our nation headquarters are in Cranbrook. So it's a vast difference compared to when I was growing up, when there were still stores where they did not welcome Indigenous people to go into those stores in Cranbrook. Cranbrook residents today would be appalled to hear that and not want to believe it, but it's true. I lived it. I know what it was like. I know going into town with my grandmother and being turned away from places. So, yeah, and today it's incredibly different. My granddaughter and I are, we're welcomed everywhere. Much different than when it was my grandmother and I.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think that there's a growing awareness, I think, just among the Canadian population in general. But I think that also the relationships that go on here within Amak Isktunacha, I know that it's vastly different from many other areas. You talk about some of the areas in northern Canada, or even in the major cities. There's still a lot of controversy, and there's still a fair amount of prejudice, or so it's not saying that everything is great here. Yeah, our kids still run into situations in the high school, and I think that's just the way human nature is. We always have to find somebody to other, and somebody to put down. But I think that the overall working relationship between the communities and the Ktunaxa communities and all of the communities within our homelands, I think that is much, much better. And I describe it as being a very positive relationship. Bamit tsaquna kuslqaklis atiaqaqaki go innallak tunaqa aqlsmaknik tsna kuslaw sawsaqwalla ka amaknalla go innallak tunaqa wilqani kusukil qokna sanmiyatki. So I've just said I'm very, very happy to have this opportunity to tell just a little bit about who we are as Ktunaxa, and I'm very thankful that you're here.
It's nice to hear from Sophie saying that there's been improvements in that relationship. So many more stories to come. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Corey Bullock reporting for the CBC now in Cranbrook. Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Leanne.
Web developers say it's the new frontier when it comes to online communities and interaction. After the break, we'll show you some virtual worlds being developed right here in Vancouver. How it works, stay with us. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Scientists are looking at how Alberta can help feed the insatiable need for lithium. As Taylor Lambert reports, it's the must-have ingredient that's used in batteries of all sizes, a key piece to our greener future.
Lithium has become one of the most sought-after minerals in the world, and scientists are hard at work looking for new ways to produce it. Lithium's primary use is in batteries, commonly found in consumer electronics like cell phones and computers. But they're also used in electric vehicles.
The issue that we're facing is we have a big lithium shortage essentially on the horizon, and that's already manifested in the dramatic increase in the price of lithium.
And with prices soaring, the search is on to find new and unconventional sources, even in Alberta's oil and gas wells. From Australia's open-pit mines to South America's lithium triangle, lithium extraction has a reputation for being quite destructive. But in Alberta, scientists are developing greener ways to extract it. Our lithium is found in many of the same areas as conventional oil and gas deposits, deep underground in deposits of salty water packed with minerals known as brine. Albertans have already been pulling up brines for decades.
Almost always when you produce oil and gas, you produce wastewater brine as a byproduct.
Once the oil and gas is acquired, that brine is then re-injected back into the ground. But as lithium's value continues to increase, Alberta is revisiting that operation. By adding something called a sorbent, a substance that attracts lithium molecules, The lithium can be extracted from the brine before it is discarded.
The processes that we're all using fall under the general realm of an ion exchange. An ion exchange is in and of itself very well understood. Water softener in your house is an ion exchange.
No company is currently producing lithium by these methods, but they could be soon. And that raises concerns for environmental advocates.
Because this is also new, it's been challenging finding actual quality information on what are the environmental impacts and what are the opportunities and risks associated with this.
Smith also worries whether environmental assessments would be carried out on all projects.
Especially with it being an emerging new industrial activity, we would prefer to have a good baseline of evidence of how these will be implemented, especially as it's getting rolled out.
But proponents say brine mining would be less destructive than the lithium extraction techniques employed elsewhere, and could represent a significant new industry for Alberta.
We understand fundamentally how these systems operate. So I think that from that perspective, it's pretty low that there's going to be some nasty surprise that's going to have a big environmental impact to what we're doing.
But before that's put to the test, the government of Alberta must finalize its regulations around brine extraction. When asked for a timeline, the province said only that the work is ongoing. Taylor Lambert, CBC News, Edmonton.
It started with chat rooms and forums, but local entrepreneurs say when it comes to getting together online, the next iteration will be much more immersive. We spoke to some of them about so-called virtual worlds. Take a look.
I think people are starting to be honest about the fact that a lot of their lives exist primarily digitally.
There's this kind of unleashing of creative power that's happening right now.
It's almost like having a massive box of Lego. And you can build what you want with it, and then you can deconstruct them and put them back together again. And, you know, rather than necessarily being forced down the path of somebody else's imagination, right?
Virtual worlds are something that really have to be experienced in order to be understood. What we found is that we can explain it for hours to somebody, and then we get into a room with them, and they're like, oh, I get it. So this is Active Replica's homeroom. It's a kind of a virtual community center, essentially, is what we're looking at. It's a mixed purpose space where people can come together and meet socially. So what Active Replica does is we work with social organizations in order to build a virtual space for them and empower them to connect with their community through these virtual spaces. What we've built here with this little homeroom is our own wing of the metaverse, right? So to build something like what you see here requires a whole team. We start by working with professional architects, people who understand how people move through real world spaces and why they feel a particular way when they enter the space. From there, you know, there's a whole process of 3D modeling in order to create ground plans, which we then drop into virtual reality and try out. And then we're constantly iterating and updating and tweaking and deleting this and dropping that, and kind of all of the different fun parts of actually the process of creation. And I'm really excited to look at kind of the intersection of like architecture and the people who are thinking about real world social spaces and the intersection of that with the virtual worlds.
What we're trying to do at Departure Lounge and with MetaStage is to really bring humans into this metaverse and have you feel a part of their stories, engage with their stories, or actually drive part of the story yourself while you're in there.
To date, motion capture's really, required actors or performers to put on special suits. You've got the motion capture bubbles or whatever on the suits. But with the MetaStage, what we can do is take both the performance and the clothes or the costumes or whatever it is that performer is wearing at the time, and bring those really very efficiently and with a huge amount of sort of high fidelity into the metaverse.
Scanning is becoming a big element of building these worlds. You'll go out and scan a building and then you can actually create it to be in the metaverse, rather than where you would traditionally go and do modeling in the VFX pipeline. Everything is modeled to scale, Now you can just scan it and then texture and paint on top of it, and then you've got your room.
So one of the things that I'm most excited about with Departure Lounge is that we get the opportunity to work on a global scale with some really interesting international projects, but also bring it back home here to BC. We're working with a Haida artist down on Granville Island, totem carver called Clarence Mills, figuring out how we can take what Clarence knows how to do, utilizing that kind of tradition and bringing that into, the modern mixed reality space.
Well, look at how easy that was to, you know what, like I have to think like that and dream like that, and it actually just showed up.
So right now in the early days of Metaverse, there's a lot of opportunity for creating VR experiences. So even right here where we are at CDM, there's a lot of companies that are being incubated here and starting here that are creating VR experiences. There's just an explosion of Metaverse experiences, which are VR. So it's a huge opportunity for people to get into right now. But to have the feeling of being there and feel like physical reality, that's the trick, and that's the exciting part, and that's what we've accomplished here. Yeah, so we started uncontained because there just wasn't anything that was hyper immersive. What we've created is an environment that looks and feels like you're actually there, but then what we start to do is interconnect these containers and interconnect all of the locations that we have, and then all the systems that we've pioneered since 2016, we can then open those up. So it's almost kind of a rising tides floats all boats scenario where we are in such early day with the metaverse and we're all trying to figure it out together.
It's complementing real life rather than replacing real life. But I do think as time progresses over the next few years, that devices are going to be far more flexible on their use, i.e. glasses like this are going to become more of what we will see for augmented reality, and then over time probably virtual reality as well.
As more and more people are living primarily digitally, they're finding their ways into social communities online. There's something really alchemical and magical when you have a group of people that want to be together, being able to be together in a way that they haven't in a long time. There's something really special there.
I feel like now is the time that VR is really going to take off, and is the time that we're really embracing it.
It's a subtle protest held at soccer's greatest tournament. After the break, we'll show you the Iranian Canadians speaking out at Qatar's World Cup and how FIFA is responding.
This is me looking at you, looking at me. And I'm using one of the latest developments in the home video revolution, the Sony Video 8 autofocus. It's $2,200 at the Sony store on Davie Street, and it uses a cassette not much bigger than your audio cassette. You get 2 hours of video on this. The thing I like the most about it is it's light. It's only 5 pounds. No more carrying a suitcase to make your home movies. You can also use it as a playback unit. You can see what you've shot in the viewfinder, or you can plug it into your TV set. For those who want something even smaller, Sony has made the Pack 8 using the same tape. It's got a fixed lens, still has a microphone, but it's only 2 pounds, and it costs $14.99. Let's face it, a lot of us are brought up with TV, and these days you never know when you're going to get the urge. But you don't want to carry the tube around with you, or do you? Well, maybe this little Casio TV21, which sells for $199.99 at Kit's Camera, is the trick for you. You just pop it open, stick in the earplug, turn it on, you're watching TV. People these days want their high-tech toys as small as possible. Miniature is beautiful in electronics. And don't be fooled by the size. This little AM/FM Sony radio, which sells for $49.95, has pretty good sound. This is how far tape recorder technology has come. At $300, this Panasonic microcassette is just about the smallest you can get. 30 minutes aside at high speed, 60 minutes at slow speed. It's intended for people who have to take notes on the road and who can't make mistakes. But what high-tech toy box would be complete without a calculator? Well, this one's different. First of all, it's about as thin as a credit card, and it's also solar-powered. No need to buy batteries. It costs $20, and about the only time you'd have a problem is in a dimly lit restaurant. But hey, even that's no problem when you got a Tecna Microlight, also about $20, and it's waterproof to 100 feet below the surface. Now, if they could just miniaturize the prices of all these things.
A passenger plane that left Vancouver last night had a frightening landing this morning in Ontario. Now the Transportation Safety Board is investigating. The Flair Airlines jet with 140 passengers and crew overran the runway at the Kitchener-Waterloo Airport. There were no injuries, and everyone on board was eventually bused to the airport terminal. But the TSB says there is visible damage to one wing. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made his highly anticipated appearance before the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Trudeau says police were simply not doing their job. And as Rafi Boudjikanian reports, he defended the decision to invoke the act to end the convoy protests last winter.
3 weeks into February, the convoy cleared out. Something that would have been a lot harder, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau insisted, if his government had not invoked the Emergencies Act.
We heard from various authorities and police of jurisdiction, don't worry, we got this. I mean, we heard in testimony here that there was a plan on the 13th that the Ottawa Police Services pulled together. I would recommend people take a look at that actual plan, which wasn't a plan at all.
Prime Minister, we've heard evidence.
A rebuke the lawyer for Ottawa Police did not appreciate, pointing out there was a plan with sign-off from her employer, the Ontario Provincial Police, and the RCMP.
You also testified that it was not a plan that you or the RCMP had confidence in. Is that correct? At least that was your understanding.
If there wasn't a plan, then we probably didn't have confidence in it.
So you can see that there's some content in relation to deployment plan.
Sorry, is this a table of contents?
Yes.
So the entire deployment plan fits onto one page?
Well, a description.
Also revisited today, a conversation between Trudeau and then Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, where he'd criticized Ontario Premier Doug Ford for hiding.
It was a unpleasant situation. There were bad headlines. I was getting grumbled at by citizens of Ottawa every day because the federal government wasn't dealing with it.
The big question that still didn't get an answer today, exactly what led the federal government to deal with it. The core legal opinion it leaned on shielded from the Commission of Inquiry due to solicitor-client privilege.
Would you advise that opinion be released in the interest of transparency?
This is certainly an issue that requires careful consideration and not one to require a prime minister to respond to in the spur of the moment.
It will take a couple of months yet to determine whether that lack of disclosure will weigh on the Commission's final report. Today, the Prime Minister insisted the government was right in using a different definition than Canada's intelligence agency CSIS to determine what is a national public emergency. In February, the inquiry will state whether it agrees. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The ongoing turmoil in Iran continues to cast a shadow over the country's participation in soccer's World Cup. The Iranian team took on Wales today, but as Thomas Daigle reports, in the stands, protesters took on the Iranian regime.
One quick picture, and it's time to cover up. These Iranian Canadians hiding their protest shirts with soccer jerseys. They didn't come to the World Cup to cheer.
We're trying our best to be our people's voice.
And not only them. As Iranians and Welsh fans flooded into Bin Ali Stadium, several wore T-shirts with that now familiar message.
So this is one of the symbols. There are many symbols of that, but the message is women, life, freedom. When people are being brutally killed, soccer is meaningless.
Activists are remaining pretty discreet here. Several we spoke to either didn't want to share their names or have their picture taken out of fear for their safety.
They hide their shirts because of this. Tournament security barring people carrying Iranian protest items. FIFA doesn't tolerate political statements, and host Qatar maintains cordial ties with Tehran. So guards tell demonstrators to keep it covered. The eyes of the world turned to Iran's team, who chose to at least half-heartedly sing the national anthem after staying silent before their last game. Sure, they do have fans.
We are here to supporting our team. We are not sharing anything out of the football, out of sport.
But anti-government protesters consider the squad allies of the regime after players posed with President Ebrahim Raisi before the World Cup. Unlike Voria Ghafouri, the outspoken player who security forces arrested in Iran, as if to say, stick to soccer.
This is the only World Cup that I like my team to lose, not to win.
Iran's victory celebrated by the security forces protesters are denouncing. The World Cup is proving to be the latest flashpoint in this crisis, with greater stakes than in sports. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Al Rayyan, Qatar.
She took a small shop on South Granville and over 50 years turned it into one of BC's most recognized salons. After the break, a look at entrepreneur Suki Tagaki and the challenges she faced as an Asian and female entrepreneur.
I come from a musical home. My dad's a professional musician. My sister is a playback singer and a composer as well. I've been working with music since I was a little kid, and I was an electronic music producer for a few years. I DJed for a bit on the electronic music scene in India. I did a lot of work with Bollywood, scored a lot of independent cinema, but my passion for plant music came from this need to, find a connection with nature. Basically, we take two sensors and place them on the plant here, and these are connected to a biofeedback sensor, which then converts all the information to usable signals that can then control the synthesizers. I've set up 3 plants here, and what we're going to do is we're going to plug into each of these 3 plants and listen in for any discerning changes in character. So let's just see what we get with the first one, which is the beautiful golden Petra. See what that sounds like. That's the golden Petra. Bear with me. We're taking a look at the canna lily now. Parameters are the same. Let's see what happens. There's a lot more space between the notes, and you can hear that the rhythm is different. There's a lot more breathing between the notes. Next, we're going to listen to the begonia. I noticed the notes are at a higher register than the other ones. Sounds airy and sparkly. Very light sounding plant.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
One of Vancouver's most iconic hair salons is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Sukis has since expanded to multiple locations across the province. And as Ali Patargay tells us, its namesake and founder had to weather a discriminatory beauty industry to grow it into the franchise we know today.
For decades, Sukis Hair Salon has been known for its stylish, high-precision cuts, starting with founder and namesake Suki Takagi, who still has the same sharp bob she sported for decades.
Hair is the most precious things attached to our body. If it's a Picasso, you goof the canvas, throw it out, you can paint it again. But us, there is no such a thing as goofing.
Though she's since retired from day-to-day operations, Takagi remains deeply invested in the company, having built the business despite numerous barriers facing Asian women when she opened. In 1972, the single mother opened her first location in South Granville. Immediately, she says, she struggled with racism and sexism.
All the stylists was working in that salon said, we will not able to work women nor Asian.
With no hairdressers to help her, that day she sat alone in her empty salon.
And I decided I'm going to build a company. Will never discriminate.
Born in Tokyo, Takagi first worked in Beverly Hills at Jean Shakov Hair Salon, an establishment frequented by the likes of Elizabeth Taylor, a far cry from the city she would eventually call home.
Most of our customers, professional, they do not have a time to go to the salon like a Beverly Hills every day and get your hair done.
Over the years, Takagi's artistry spoke volumes, eventually attracting fashion-forward collaborators. Then came international hair show performances, her own academy, and multiple awards.
She's always a huge inspiration for us because we try and remember, kind of what Suki would want us to do and then how to execute the most beautiful hair as possible.
For this 50 years, I'm very proudly to say we never been compromised.
Her son has now taken over the company with plans to continue challenging industry biases for years to come. Ali Patargay, CBC News, Vancouver.
That was a really nice story, hey, Joe? I've always wondered about Suki's story, and now we know. I didn't know that she faced so many challenges, but it would make sense in the time and day that she came up.
It was, I didn't know any of that history, Leanne. I'm so glad we share that. Funny enough, though, that was the first place that I got my hair cut when I moved here 10 years ago. Yeah, I asked around and everyone said, you got to go to Suki's and no regrets. I mean, probably need to go back soon, but yeah, very, very cool to share that. Great. Thank you. Very cool to learn that history. I've got to talk about this snow that's coming up. I think everyone by now has seen it on your weather apps and we've alluded to it. We're starting to gain some confidence now in what that looks like for next Tuesday, Wednesday. we still have to get through that rainmaker tomorrow. Let's start off with the current temperatures. We're actually quite mild, but temperatures will drop a little cooler than they have been with clear skies overnight. We're getting sort of a 12-hour break between systems. Unfortunately, that break is lining up through the overnight. So our driest section of the past 2 days will happen right now into early morning hours. That low pressure system will push the rain across Metro Vancouver early hours, and then watch as it moves across the interior. All of that purple is snow, so this is expecting to bring a lot of snow to the mountain passes Saturday night into Sunday. And then this system will drag down that modified Arctic air mass, and we'll really feel it on the south coast Sunday night. That cold air will really settle into place. So when we get that next Pacific system on Tuesday, it's going to be bringing that moisture to cold air. This is on the back end of that system, just a snapshot of Wednesday night. This could be a full 2-day event of accumulating snow. Still a lot of uncertainty. You know, this morning the models were saying 3 to 5 centimeters for Vancouver. This afternoon, 20 centimeters. So they have not been in good agreement for snowfall totals, but I'd say we're going to get something Tuesday and Wednesday, and hopefully we can hone in on those numbers. But look how cold that air gets here. Sunday afternoon highs, Monday, Williams Lake highs of just -12, so wind chills will be much colder. 10 to 20 millimeters tomorrow, though. It's a classic mild and wet Saturday. Lingering showers for Sunday, but I do think we'll see some sunny breaks. Monday is definitely a break day, but Leanne, that is when we start to feel those overnight lows. And look at that, Tuesday and Wednesday, the icons are hitting, those snow icons, that is, and then cold air from there on in. This is the La Nina that we were expecting.
Okay, I'm getting those toboggans ready. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
CBC's Marketplace is looking into the phenomenon of vanity sizing. They put popular brands of jeans to the test, measuring what you're told versus what you're sold when it comes to the size on the label. And as Rosa Marcatelli reports, the range between brands over time makes shopping difficult.
We're shopping for 7 brands of jeans in similar styles. Levi's, H&M.
Okay, thank you.
Abercrombie & Fitch, Wrangler, Lee,
Thank you. Have a good day.
Gap, and Old Navy. And get these aspiring models to try them on. They have the average waist sizes for Canadians. She's 34 inches, he's 38. We bring in a sizing expert to help us test how the actual size of the jeans measures up to what's on the label.
But definitely the waist is too big.
I feel like there's some space in the back.
The men's jeans are right to size, or about an inch or two bigger. But it's a lot more for the women's pairs. It's called vanity sizing, when companies make clothing bigger over time, but keep the same size number. So consumers think they're fitting into smaller sizes and feel good about buying the product.
Vanity sizing is kind of a marketing tool. They start changing labels. It's a psychological game. It is.
The biggest difference?
These are huge. I can't believe that these are 34. They're so big.
These jeans from Abercrombie & Fitch. The tag says they have a 34-inch waist.
Oh my God. Almost 20, so that's almost 40.
A 40-inch waist. That's a full 6 inches bigger than the tag. This psychologist says there's a danger to this kind of marketing.
What responsibility do manufacturers have in all this?
I think they have a pretty big responsibility. It connects a size, an objective measure, such as a clothing size or, for instance, weight on a scale with a person's self-worth.
So we asked the companies. Wrangler and Levi's didn't comment. Abercrombie & Fitch, the company behind the jean with the biggest difference, say the number on the label won't always match the waist measurement, and that's by design. H&M says they're working to ensure they offer the correct sizing. Gap and Old Navy say the design and material can lead to sizing inconsistency. Lee apologized, saying they'll look into making improvements. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, it's not every day that CBC opens a new shop. We'll bring you some more sights and sounds from the Kootenay town of Cranbrook next.
Hockey is my life. I've been fortunate enough to be able to make a career of it. I'm Rebecca Johnston. I'm player development with the Calgary Flames. Player development is basically developing the prospects, so players that will hopefully one day play for the Flames, and just really trying to help develop them as players and as people, and just help guide them to becoming pro athletes. Watching the Flames the last 8 years I've been here, and I'm a huge supporter of them, so it was a no-brainer for me to try to get in with the Flames and just see maybe something that I would want to do in the future. There's a lot of great females out there. There's a lot of opportunity, and it is great to see, and I think the Flames are doing a great job with diversity and having that inclusion, and I feel very respected here, so it's been a great experience.
I'm Danielle Fajita, and I'm the skating coach of the Calgary Flames. I started with the Flames about 5 years ago, just working with the veterans in their off season, and really proved myself that way apparently, and was able to get a full-time contract. The biggest gains that the players make, not just in the ability to skate better, it's the knowledge of how to skate better. It's the technique and the science behind their movements. My players don't usually know that I come from a figure skating background. I've made it a very big push in my skating to make sure that they can't see me as a figure skater, that I don't look like a figure skater out there, that I actually look more like a hockey player. There isn't any difficulty for me being a female out here with the guys. Quite the opposite, actually. These guys, for whatever reason, they confide in me.
I'm new, so I'm just getting to know everyone now, so hopefully I create great relationships where they can open up to me, and any struggles that they may have, I definitely want to be able to help, because I've been through it all really with my career, and I feel like I can give that guidance and reassurance and just be able to help them overcome that.
As human beings, we have to prove that we have, one, the experience, two, the knowledge, and the ability to transfer that knowledge into results. And women are starting to do that more and more, and I think that's why people are starting to take notice of it, and why you're going to start to see more and more females active in the sport.
It's almost weird to think that I'm a role model. I still think it's weird to this day, and I've been on the national team for a while now, but I really do take it to heart, and I really want to show these girls how important it is that girls can do anything.
As we told you earlier in the program, it's an exciting day for us here at CBC British Columbia. Our footprint in the province has gone just a little bit bigger. Today was the grand opening of our Cranbrook Bureau, which will bring you stories from around the Kootenays. We had live broadcasts all day, and our cameras were rolling. Take a look.
CBC is a wonderful institution, and I think it brings Canadians together. And I love listening to stories all throughout British Columbia. I think it will be wonderful to have the stories from the Kootenays front and center.
It's fabulous to have CBC here in town and to report on the Kootenays, because especially in the Lower Mainland, very few people know anything past hope. Small town living, friendly, loving the outdoors, and the outdoors are affordable and accessible. And especially these days, when we're told to get outdoors in nature, I think it's really important to do that. My sister and I were raised here in Cranbrook, and we grew up listening to CBC, and I've always been a really big CBC radio fan. So thank you to CBC for all it does to inform us.
A huge thank you to all of our listeners, our viewers, for joining us throughout the day at those live broadcasts. It's been such a wonderful, warm welcome. Excited to learn more about Cranbrook. And thank you to all of you for joining us for CBC News at 6 this week. I will be back this weekend. Anita will be back in the chair as well next week. And that does it for us today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for watching.